So T Monay is going to help us come up with an exercise to help us memorize 3 different things. A dominant chord resolution, an augmented 6th chord resolution, and an altered tritone substitution resolution, depending on your destination. And he shows you this by doing a very clever move within one of his little pieces here. This is called the Album for the Young. I'll just set up the sequence so you can hear it before it happens. Starts here. Does it again here. That's almost like a dominant chain, except there's a basic chord in between, but something else is in between the dominant chord. So a normal chain, circle of 5th. But he's sticking something in between. What is this? Well, he's sticking in an augmented 6th chord or a tritone substitution, depending on your destination. Dominant, converted to a tritone substitution, or augmented 6th chord, resolve to a B-based chord. Now, that's either the tritone substitution altered with a flat 5 or the French 6, depends on your destination. But they all go to the B chord. If the B is the tonic, then it's a tritone substitution. If E is the tonic, B is the dominant, and that makes it a French 6. What he just showed us here is if you take the 5th degree of a dominant chord, lower the 5th degree by 1/2 step, you get an augmented 6th chord shape or a tritone substitution that's altered. Basically a dominant shape with a flat 5. So T Monay is not only doing dominant chains, he's chucking this in the middle of dominant-like chains or circle of 5ths or circle of 5th chains just by converting one note, the 5th, on the dominant chords. So you could keep going around the circle of 5ths. This will happen 6 times. So he's given us a clever way to practice these moves just by altering one note of the dominant chord. So I just want to point out here, here's the exercise. You take his idea of just moving the 5th down a 1/2 step, it becomes an augmented 6th chord or a tritone substitution depending on the destination. Now I'm just spelling things so they're easy to read, not exactly how the chord's spelled out. So I named things that are a little bit easier to read, like E7 flat 5 instead of F flat 7 flat 5. That's harder to read and think about when you're playing a keyboard or trying to sight read. Or have a headache looking at chord symbols. So he's basically given us 2 chords that would either go to a tonic or a dominant. This is interesting, because we're given the answer to both solutions, the tritone substitution and the augmented 6, depending on the destination. Is it the 1 chord or the 5 chord? It could be the 5 chord in a B flat based key, which would make the C alteration to the augmented 6 chord, like this. A 5 of 5 altered to the augmented 6 chord. French 6 to be exact. But if that's the tonic, the F, it becomes the tritone substitution. So the destination is important here, but it's given us the solution to both. It's still going to go to an F-based chord. Like that. And T Monay's definitely aware of the tritone substitution because he used it quite often. And he talks about this in his theory book, but he doesn't call it the tritone substitution. He still calls it an augmented 6 chord that can go to 1. So we could kill 3 birds with 1 stone here. These are all chords that would go to F. Okay? But this pattern can go counterclockwise around the circle of 5ths and make perfect sense, which in essence gives us an exercise we can do to memorize the dominant that would normally go to a chord, the tritone substitution, altered with the flat 5, or the French 6. So we're killing 3 stones with 1 bird. Or 3 birds with 1 stone. Now this will only occur 6 times. It skips every other key if you're going around the circle of 5ths counterclockwise. So we're getting 2 moves basically that would move to a specific chord. C7 or the G flat 7 flat 5. Whatever you want to call it. We're not going to call it any fancy name. And it depends on the destination. That could be the augmented 6 chord or the tritone substitution. depending on the destination chord as a tonic or a dominant. Cyclic patterns that repeat and only 6 times instead of 12, if you just move them up a half step, usually that solves the problem. So here's round 2. This is a great exercise for memorizing these resolutions. So this has given us a nice cool little exercise to use to memorize a couple of moves. And this will occur 6 times before it repeats with the same chord sequence. Right here. We're starting over again. I just want to point something out on the last one. I call it B double flat 7 because there was a choice there between that and A sharp 7. I mean, pick your poison. Either one's hard to think about, so I'm choosing the easiest N harmonic path that I can think of. So good old T's giving us something to do. We take a dominant chord, alter one note, the 5th. We could do it in various positions now. Flat the 5. And the next logical step is to revoice it and do the same sequence again with round 1 and round 2. But here's what you want to remember. If you take a dominant chord and just flat the 5, it could become an augmented 6 chord, French 6, or a tritone substitution. And continue on in a circle of 5th chain. Doesn't matter how you voice it. See how it just sounds very natural? So Mr. T Monay here has given us a really cool trick too as well. And T has always been very, very clever with cyclic chains like this. In fact, it's a notable feature of his style, but he's given us something cool to practice here too, because it's helping us memorize the dominant chord that normally goes to B and the augmented 6 chord, or the tritone substitution with a flat 5. And now all you have to do is figure out what the destination chord is. Is it the 5 or is it a 1? Augmented 6 chord 5, tritone substitution 1. And this is why it's better to actually study music as opposed to watching YouTube videos, because you can get the answers to everything if you just look through music through historically. Especially, you'll realize that people have been doing stuff way longer than we think. It's because we live in an era where most people assume that a certain genre has invented something, like the tritone substitution, but we don't realize that people have actually been using this for a very, very long time, way before we even thought. I'm not saying that to be conniving or elitist or anything. It's just the case that, and it actually humbled me too as well. When I started to study music historically, I was like, wow, this appeared way before I thought. And if you go methodically through history, you'll look at, wow, X move that I just learned, I thought it was part of this specific style, actually occurred way longer in history than you thought. And this is a very humbling experience when you go through that stage.